3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, today's video is on public goods, and again this is specific really in terms of the questions to the OCR economic specification. First of all then, public goods, there's been quite a few past paper questions on public goods. I've just illustrated 3 here, so the latest specification just means January 2011 6A, 6B. On the older specification 2882, 109, AII, 108, AI and AII. There's actually been quite a lot of questions on public goods. The other thing is, be aware there was also a comment question in the past on public goods. Anyway, what are public goods? Well, public goods basically are goods that are usually provided by the government. Now there's a reason for this, and we'll explain that a little bit later. But public goods have 2 key characteristics, and we've got a list of words here that you really need to be familiar with by the end of this topic. And the first one, public goods are non-excludable. And this means you can't exclude people from using them. Okay, so there's no way that you can stop, for instance, people using a lighthouse, even if they've not, for instance, paid taxation towards looking after it or whatever. Also, non-rival. What does that mean? Well, it means that consumption by one person can't affect consumption of another person. So, for instance, think of street lighting. If I consume street lighting as I'm walking around down the street, that doesn't prevent someone else from using it. So don't forget that. Public goods have got 2 key characteristics: non-excludable and non-rival. Sometimes you hear people say non-diminishable instead of non-rival. If we contrast that with a private good, that's very different. A private good is basically, it is excludable and it is rival. Think of a bottle of Pepsi-Cola. If I buy it, okay, it is excludable because I needed money to purchase it. And the other thing is, if I consume it, well, obviously it's not available for consumption by others. So as you can see, that's the examples of private good. Moving on then. One of the problems that we have with public goods is because basically it is non-excludable, people will soon cotton on that actually I don't necessarily have to contribute towards paying for this, whether directly or through taxation. So what you have, therefore, is free rider issues. Now, free rider means that you get to consume this public good even though you've not contributed towards it financially. And that's a real issue. That's especially an issue amongst private sector. They're not going to provide a good that people can get away with paying for. And that's why we generally see that public goods are provided for or provided by the government. Sometimes you hear people calling this a missing market because there's no effective price mechanism. Hence we have it provided by the public sector and not the private sector. Another thing that you need to be familiar with is this word quasi-public good. What does it mean? Well, it basically means that goods have some of the characteristics of non-excludable and maybe some of the characteristics of non-rival, or it might have one or the other. Let's talk about this in context of a past question. So a typical past question might be, define a public good. In that case, you're just going to say a good that's non-excludable and a good that's non-rival. That would be absolutely fine on a definition question. What happens though if you get a question, is a beach a public good? Well, that's an interesting one, isn't it? Because it's got some elements of a public good, but also some elements don't quite neatly fit with a public good. Let's go through this. So for a beach, first of all, is it excludable? Well, it depends, doesn't it? What happens if it's a private beach attached to a hotel? Well, of course, then it is excludable. What happens if you have to pay on this to get on this beach, which sometimes happens, certainly when I've been abroad. Therefore, it is excludable. But if it was just my local beach, for me that's down in Morecambe, well, I suppose in some degree, it's not excludable. So again, it depends. The second point, of course, what about rival? Does my consumption of a beach affect other people's consumption of a beach? Well, again, it depends. What happens, for instance, if there's just me on the beach? Well, then it's non-rival really, other people can come down and use it. But what happens if that beach is really crowded? That may therefore affect other people using that beach. So in this case, it's got some of the characteristics of a public good, but it doesn't quite satisfy both of them fully, i.e. it's got some elements of non-excludable and some elements of non-rival. This is a clear case of what we call a quasi-public good. Thank you.